The goal of our work is to help Guatemalans find hope at home. At the same time, I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come.
People, we opened up with this clip. I don't know if we feel like we would like to play it again or not. But
don't come
do not come. People have seen this already. Kamala Harris going to Guatemala and basically laying out what the Biden platform will be, which is a continuation of the anti-human and destructive policies of the Trump administration and the Obama administration, while couched in these kind of niceties. And I was making the point earlier about Kamala Harris and her tongue. And if you watch this video, there's this air of like difficulty in what she's saying, right? She's like, this kind of thing where like, I don't really want to have to say this, right? Which really plays to a kind of liberal base where it's, essentially is we're going to uphold these systems of apartheid. We're going to uphold these systems of a brutal anti-human border. We're going to uphold these systems of imperialism. But you know what? We will take a deep, deep pause and ponder the suffering that we're causing, right? And that's functionally, when we're getting down to it, is one of the big differences so far between the Trump and the Biden administration, where for the Trump administration, it's very much was rah, we're going to punish people who break our laws. But with these communities, it's like, well, we're still going to be absolutely brutal, but we're going to understand, we're going to take a moment to reflect on how brutal.
Did you see what Joe Biden wore today?
No, I did not, Lord.
So you remember Melania Trump wearing the I don't care jacket? Joe Biden, I shit you not, wore a love jacket, and people are calling it an echo of the Melania thing. And it is, it's I'm sure anybody detained for just hours and 100 hours or so, or whatever it is going to love that, Joe Biden wearing a love jacket with love on the back of it.
I mean, this is exactly what is so frustrating about, contemporary American liberal politics, right? Is that, it's not only is it all symbolism, it's just like this kind of feigned pain for upholding, the systems of American empire. We did an in-depth conversation about the root causes when it comes to migration from Guatemala and other countries in the Northern Triangle. But I just want to remind people that this package that Kamala Harris is down there trying to promote is truly catching people in Guatemala between two extremely nasty American-born pincers. On one hand, a beefed up and even more brutal border system, right, where the United States is pumping millions of dollars to encourage the Guatemalan government to harass and detain people, right? So you have the security state, right? That's the hard apparatus of the state. And then what's the other side? This is supposed to be the carrot. This is supposed to be what's improving conditions. What that is United States corporations coming into Guatemala to extract and profit off of the suffering of people in Guatemala, and most importantly, off of working people in Guatemala, right? We're talking about organizations like Nestle, which is not a nice, sweet, happy organization. This is an organization that has fully committed itself not only to profit as a religion, but to profit in its most extreme sense, preventing people from having access to water, to natural resources in their community. Nestle is not some... All capitalist corporations are bad, but Nestle is like to an extreme.
Yeah,
right.
They're not just trying to help your Easter out.
Yeah, so making this argument that like, we're going to create economic opportunity for people by using corporations that are set up to extract capital from that part of the world and bring that back into the United States is absolutely despicable and disgusting, right? And I'm sure that, this conversation, that this delivery that Kamala Harris put together was workshop time and time again. And I'm telling you, it's very cold comfort when you are being pillaged and then harassed, right? To have the people who are behind that system to sit there and have a little bit of pause to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we have time, I wanted to compare it because I want to make this point that the way that people use this, if you have that Ted Cruz thing,
Yep, got it.
It's going to infuriate me. But you have to recognize when we're trying to build our different kind of political vision from what the Democrats offer, and certainly from what the Republicans offer, is that all of the suffering and the blood and the death and the despair that goes into maintaining this system is just a damn political football for these people, right? And we're going to show Ted Cruz being extremely cynical about the border in a second. But remember, even when Donald Trump in 2016, right, when he was running against the Republican, party and their history, remember, there's a lot of people who are wrapped up in his rhetoric. Oh man, Donald Trump might be the first anti-imperialist president. He might challenge the system, right? Well, it was very easy for Trump to do that when Obama was the president, right? Because he could say, or when he was running against people like Jeb Bush and ghouls like Marco Rubio, right? He could make this point. But the second that Trump was, in the driver's seat, of course, he not only continued those systems, but he doubled down on them. And the point here is to understand that rhetoric is really damn cheap. And both of these parties are very well versed in appealing to our basic humanity on these questions, because I would go far as to wager that most Americans don't want to see this kind of brutality to maintain, American hegemony, right? They don't want to see this kind of brutality to maintain the profits of the few. And what both the Republican and the Democratic Party do is tap into that disgust when they're the party out of power.
Right. Yeah. Emails. What about their emails? Here's this Ted Cruz clip.
Here's a tweet from her in 2017 in which she said, "Say it loud, say it clear. Everyone is welcome here. Hashtag no ban, no wall." And then this is what she said to NPR in March of 2019.
I disagree with any policy that would turn America's back on people who are fleeing harm. I frankly believe that it is contrary to everything that we have symbolically and actually said we stand for.
And yesterday she was there and she tried to say,
just to parse that rhetoric a little bit, symbolically and actually said we stand for, which, kind of not a whole, that's all, we're all in the symbolic realm there, but anyway.
Do not come, you will be turned away. Let's get your take this morning, Senator.
Well, I got to say, that video of her saying "do not come," it seemed a little bit like a hostage video. She was reading the words, but everything she has said, everything Joe Biden has said, and more importantly, everything Joe and Kamala have done, have sent exactly the opposite message. We've seen in the 5 months they've been in office an absolute disaster unfolding at the border. You may remember a couple of months ago, I brought 19 senators down to the Rio Grande Valley to see firsthand what was happening. We are seeing hundreds of thousands of people crossing illegally, the highest rate of illegal immigration in 20 years. We're seeing little children being brought in by human traffickers, thrown in cages. For 4 years, the media went on and on and on about kids in cages, kids in cages. What they never told you is Barack Obama built the cages, and now Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have built more cages. They're bigger and they're more full. And in that entire interview, what you don't hear is any willingness to fix the problem. They can fix the problem tomorrow, and they can fix the problem by ending catch and release.
But it's despicable, the hypocrisy is clear to almost anybody with a brain, right? That Ted Cruz being worked up about the cages today is disgusting after spending 4 years, promoting them and celebrating Donald Trump's, actions at the border. The real point here is one, to understand that this empire is built on this kind of terror, right? And if you want to run it, you have to manage that system, right? We don't want to run it. We want to break it. And remember that these people's rhetoric is so cynical. This is sort of like an additional point here, but there's something that I see sometimes from leftists or people who consider themselves to be on the left. They get wrapped up in this right wing shit. Whenever a right winger like Ted Cruz or Donald Trump or whomever makes a criticism of like neoliberal imperialist Democrats, right, to somehow make it seem like, oh, these guys could be our allies. This is a cynical ploy here from a master manipulator, from a guy, you can see it in his face. He spent his entire life trying to manipulate and trick people, right? Do not be fooled by any of this stuff for a second. Recognize that this empire is built on these systems and that we want to break from it. And that means breaking from both of these systems, both of these parties, and try and do something radically different.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, like Ted Cruz, the solutions there just affirmatively make this problem worse. Like, yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying, like, it's frustrating when I see people sometimes think that, oh, if Fox News or some kind of right wing, person is making criticisms of imperialism, that means that things have actually shifted and they're brave. It's like, no, they're out of power.
Yeah, exactly. It's people, and it's somehow people convincing themselves that bipartisanship by a different name is possible. And it's like, no, like even the Democrats that say they're for good things, like this is the lesson we're learning all over the world. It's like if not from a movement, you shouldn't trust them. And even if they are, you should keep an eye on them, right? Like politics, once you get in there, is very difficult. So there's all these issues that politicians feel they need to speak to. And because it's a propaganda vehicle, basically, like Ted Cruz can get out there. Ted Cruz knows people like us will be provoked into like talking about him using those types of words. That's why they try to reappropriate this stuff all the time. But fundamentally, the Democrats agree that nothing's really changed from Biden to Trump. What the only thing that's really changed is what the Republicans said, the idea like Biden isn't presenting hard enough against this.
And that's essentially what Cruz is saying there. He's not talking about eradicating anything like that. He's saying that they're not being firm enough on the border. But, yeah. And
the Democrats, I think, agree. I think publicly they don't, but I think like publicly they agree basically. And I think that's a huge fight. And I think like the useful thing about having a Democrats have to own this now is at least they don't get to sit there. Kamala Harris no longer says like gets to fundraise. Those emails are going to more real people who are saying the real shit still.